Okay, so good afternoon, and I'm going to start by being one of those people that makes you talk to someone next to you. So find someone next to you, either side, and I want you just to ask a very simple question. Who are you? Go. It's good. Okay, stop. Stop. Okay, so I just asked you to ask someone next to you, who are you? Show me a show of hands if someone answered with what you do. Okay, and if you answered where you're from. Okay, so that's interesting. It seems like half of you, when you ask the question, who are you, you say, this is what I do and this is where I'm from. But what does that question actually mean? Who are you? And this is something that I've been thinking about a lot. Who are you? And I've been looking at this word, and I figure it's not so much about who are you, but it's more about finding your way, and finding your way from somewhere to somewhere. And I've somehow found my way to Toronto, and I'm happy to be here. It's not my first time. Some of you might have seen the Battersea Museum, maybe last year, year before. I drew over the windows and stuff. So that was super fun. But I found my way in life, and I have a pretty bizarre career. People pay me to go around and draw on stuff. And I'm going to show you a very short clip of a video which gives you an example of a day of the life of me at the office. Who wants to come work with me? So that's what I do for a job. I draw on walls, and I get to kind of be this artist that flies around and does that for a career. And it wasn't something that I thought I could do as a child. As a child, I thought artists were for rich people or for very lucky people. And, how did I get here? I like to start from the beginning, and here's a picture of me and my brothers and sisters, and you can probably tell which one is me. I had shorter hair then, and I like to show this picture, and as you can see, it's my brothers and sisters. There's me, there's Lucy, there's Lisa, there's Gemma, there's Darren, and there's Sarah. We all have assumptions of who people are and where they're from and their background and their family and, everything in between. But most of the time it's wrong. So I like to show this picture to give us kind of a clean slate, a blank canvas. And I was also a big fan of Michael Jackson bootleg shorts at the time, which is kind of funny. So I grew up in this place called Thamesmead. And Thamesmead is in southeast London. Has anyone heard of Thamesmead? Wow, one person. Woo! You were there? What the hell? I don't know what you were doing there. But Thamesmead, it's one of these places in southeast London, and I had the privilege of growing up there. It was built in the late 1960s, kind of one of these utopian places where, wow, we need housing, let's build this place, and rich people and poor people, and everyone would want to live happily ever after in this one place. And even the Queen came and opened it, and this was the first family to live there. But as we know, most of these ideas, they don't really work, because if you have money and you can afford a house, you don't really want to live with people who don't. And so Thamesmead ended up getting a bad reputation, and things like Clockwork Orange were filmed there. And eventually it became a thing called a sink estate. And that basically means where they put all the problem families from all around the country and plonk them in this one place, and then let that mix around for a while. And you can imagine what happens with that. So I grew up there, and I kind of didn't look like everyone else. Like I said, I wore Michael Jackson shorts, and no one else did. Also had an afro and brown skin, no one else did. But, that was my passport. That's what helped me stand out. That's what helped me kind of be a strong individual from a very early age, because I had to kind of hold my own, so to speak. And what I used to do to kind of, get away from that, or kind of, dream or kind of control my environment, was a doodle. And as a child, I would draw these faces, and I'd give them names, and I'd say they're from, planet blah, blah, give them superpowers. And that eventually took me to, I'm going to skip a whole few years and a decade or two. But that eventually got me to art school. And when I got to art school, the type of work that I was doing was a little sad, maybe you could say it was even angry. And this was one of my characters that I would draw, and this is Hangman, and Hangman had a noose and, was attached to the world and couldn't go very far, but had a heart. So there was this kind of possibilities, or the unknown there, because there was the heart there. And I would also write these kind of poems or thoughts to myself. And, for this one, it's like, lost, found by drink, it takes you over bit by bit, and now you stink. I pour evil liquid down the sink. Or this one, fall against my resistance, my open arms closed to you. And that's kind of how I felt at the time. I felt that I had no support from the outside. I felt that I had kind of no future, because there wasn't any expectations for me. If you didn't end up an alcoholic, that was good. So this is what I was kind of dealing with when I went to art school, and this is how I got this out, and I kind of expressed myself. And the great thing about going to art school for me is that, you get there and someone's got green hair, someone has holes in their clothes, someone listens to heavy metal music, and it's okay. They don't get beaten up or anything like that. And that's what happened in Thamesmead. If you were different, people made you feel it. So going to art school was kind of like my release, and I got there and I could be an individual. And also and I went to an art school called, first I went to Camberwell College of Arts. Have you been there? And it's funny, I only went to Camberwell College of Arts, which is in southeast London. And I went there because my teacher at the time said, when I was finishing secondary school, kind of high school, and he's like, Shantell, don't apply for Camberwell College of Arts because you won't get in. And I don't know why teachers do that, but of course that was the only school I applied for, and I got in. And then after 1 year at Camberwell College of Arts, I went to Central St. Martin's. Has anyone heard of Central St. Martin's? Yep. See, it's a very famous school. It has a good reputation, but they don't really teach you much there. See, I can't even spell it. But the thing about going to Central St. Martin's is it was, it's a very famous school in Japan. And I met lots of Japanese friends and got really interested in Japan and Japanese culture. So in 2003, when you finish art school, as you do, you're like, what the hell am I going to do now? Like, with an art degree, I came from Thamesmead, now I have an art degree. Where am I going to go now? Do I get a retail job? Can I work in the library? I don't know if the library will take me. I can't really read very well. So I felt like my options were very slim. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to get on a plane. I'm going to go to Japan because I've been there a couple of times already, and I like it there, and it's unique. And there's something about Japan that's pulling me there. There's something something about Tokyo that's pulling me there. So I went, and when I got there, I wasn't really angry anymore. You know, I was like an angry 19, 20, 21, 22, 23-year-old. And then when I got to Japan, there wasn't really any need to be angry because Japan or Tokyo didn't do anything wrong to me, whereas London did, and I didn't like London. So when I got there, I also found that my work kind of changed, and I started to draw in this almost like accordion style. And I'll show you one here. And this is, I really like this accordion style because I have, my attention span's really short. So with an accordion style book, you can like draw here, then you can draw here, and then you can like jump around. And I have one that I've copied and made black and white, which is maybe easier to see. And after moving to Japan, and I got a job teaching English and was traveling around, I found that it had an effect on my work, and it made my work kind of creepy cute. You know, in England, we have this stigma against things being cute, but in Japan, they don't have that. So I got there, and, I was like, oh, yeah, cute is okay. And I felt that this kind of cuteness kind of creeped into my work. So creepy, quirky, cute. For example, this guy's got like 1, 2, 3, 4 heads, and this head's eating his shoulder, but he has a cute sweater on. He's got a bear in the pocket. He's got his favorite lamp. So there was this mixture. But what I also noticed about when I look back, I'm like, wow, this is something I drew 10 years ago, but I'm still drawing things today that I did then. And so there's kind of this underlying language that's always been there, and that's a mixture of perhaps like stickmen and hearts and birds and planes and stuff like that. And we'll just keep going till that gets to the end. And at the end, there's words. And so I feel like words is something that's always been with me. Words and lines, for me, it's the same thing. So I started to draw a lot like that and kind of completed a lot of these books. And they became almost like diaries to me, like diaristic ideas, thoughts, people I met, places I went. And what else did I put on here? So I'm going to fast forward a little bit. So yeah, I moved to Japan in 2003 and didn't know what I was eating, couldn't speak to people, kind of felt really lost. You know, you didn't have Skype and Facebook and all that stuff then. I couldn't even buy a telephone card from the 7-Eleven and use it because everything was in Japanese. But, eventually I made friends. So in around like 2004, I made some Japanese friends, and one of them happened to organize these events. And she said, hey, Shantell, I really love your drawing. Could you do some live drawing at an event I'm doing? And what she kind of meant is, you have like the band, see, I can't draw. So you have like a band playing here. This is a band, and then she kind of wanted me to be on a canvas here, drawing next to the band, and I was like, that's great, but the drawing I'm doing now is like really small. So what if we draw under a camcorder and then we project that, and we kind of keep my smallness and delicacy in that way. So we did, and it worked. And I found that I could also collaborate with musicians and dancers under there. And what I also noticed is I'm going to describe some of the music that I would have been drawing to. So, for example, this is a noise band, and they made their own instruments. So your friend says, Shantell, you want to draw? You say, great. You turn up. You fix up your camcorder. You're drawing underneath. You got your pens, you got a magnifying glass, you got Post-it notes, you're ready, and then the music starts, and the music is something like this. And you're like, oh my God, what the hell is this? But what I also realized is that, wow, like I have to go because the audience is there and the show has started and it doesn't matter what the music is. I just have to keep drawing and follow this and keep drawing and see where it goes. And that's what I did. And you almost switch off and just kind of follow the pen and go on pilot mode, and you're drawing and you're zooming in, and then you realize that, wow, I can move the paper higher, and that has a nice effect, and I can bring in my hands, and that has a nice effect. And I really enjoyed this way of working spontaneously because I didn't know where it's going to take me, because it was really uncomfortable for me. And the results were really fun. And so I at that time, I discovered, like, hey, I'm a performer. And, this is one of the earlier, like, kind of drawings from something like that. And it's, it just feels a little more uncomfortable than a lot of the initial work that I did. And then, eventually, after doing that for a while and being like, yes, I'm a performer, this is what I love to do, this is random, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I also collected cigarettes when I was younger. I've never smoked in my life, but I had this obsession with, like, cigarettes and the fact that it says this will kill you on the cigarette packets. So that was another, like, weird thing I did at art school. But anyway, they're at home in my mum's wardrobe, I think, somewhere. Fast forward, go back on track, Shantell. So I eventually kind of evolved, you could say. So from doing it digitally, from doing it analog with pen and paper under camcorder, I went digital. And probably for the first year, I drew in just black and white. So you imagine, like, the DJ would start to play some music, and then I would draw to the beat and draw to the rhythm, and I'm kind of my own BPM, and, the crowd would be like, woo, and I would be like, woo. And then you see your friend in the crowd, and you're like, maybe your friend's called Sam, because that's nice and short, and you say, yo, like, Sam, how's it going? And then Sam would be like, oh my God! Like, so that's kind of how I started doing it digital, and eventually, got a little bit more elaborate and started to experiment and would use kind of different fabric and materials, and this is a kind of like a fabric that is perforated, so the projection would project on it and through it, giving it this 3D kind of feel, and this is like way pre-projection mapping, so you're kind of using 1, 2, 3, 4 projectors like that, and it was just super fun, and like same thing with the analog stuff, you just didn't know where it was going to go, and you would just draw for hours and hours to these like minimal techno and kind of sometimes trancey music, and sometimes into smaller venues, kind of avant-garde style, like the noise stuff, but also digital. So that was like super, super fun. And, I would also try and experiment every now and then, and you can see like I've circled this here. So this is me attempting to be like, getting crazy, like what if I use 1, 2 tablets, and I use 1, 2 computers, and I connect this to 2 projectors, and I connect this to 2 projectors, and I draw at the same time. Isn't that going to be awesome? But you can see on this screen that my left hand wasn't keeping up with that idea. So sometimes, the good ideas just don't work. And I also found that, you could stick a performer in there and draw around them, and it's funny seeing like a lot of this stuff now done with like computers and being super like a little high tech, and I would do this event called Hidden Aura, where I would ask, I would basically create like a lounge environment, have a friend DJ kind of ambient music, and have bean bags so people could chill out and watch the screen. And then I would invite people up one by one to kind of stand against the screen while I drew their moving, changing, hidden aura. And this works really great in Japan. Like, if you ask a Japanese person, hey, like, stand up against the screen and don't move for 4 minutes, they can do it. I've tried it in America. I've tried it in New York. It just doesn't work so well because they'll stand there for 20 seconds and then they're like, "Oh, should I do something? Can I go back?" It just doesn't work. So it's funny seeing how some stuff translates and some stuff doesn't. There's some people hiding over here. What are they doing? Something else that used to happen is after my shows in Japan, people would be like, "Hey, can you sign me?" Like, "Sumimasen, chotto sign chodo ii desu ka?" And I'd be like, "Sure." And then this turned into kind of a whole series of kind of nice collaborations where I would draw on a fan and have a different photographer shoot them. And so let's do a little bit of a time check. 2003, I moved to Japan. 2004, I get analog. Around 2005, 6, 7, I get digital. Around 2008, I have a pretty comfortable career in Japan. I've released a DVD. I'm doing J-pop kind of videos. I have residencies in clubs. Everything's comfortable. I have a nice home. I'm making money. So what do you do when you're really comfortable? You decide to leave. And I'd never been to New York or the US, actually. So in 2008, I decided to go for a holiday for the first time. And I don't know about, there's probably people in here that's been to New York for a holiday, and you get there, and you're like, wow, this place is so amazing, I'm going to move here. Then you find an immigration lawyer, you get an immigration visa. 4 months later, in 2009, you move to New York, and then you're like, oh, crap, what did I just do? Yeah, New York has everything, but not if you move from Tokyo. Tokyo has food, like great food, sushi, it has these clubs, it has this like cultural expectations for visuals, and just kind of, well, actually, I was in Vegas last week, and I was like, wow, this is like Japan. Because they did have these huge clubs, and they did have these huge projectors, but it was being used in more of like a cheesy way. But anyway, so when I moved to New York in 2009, they didn't have that. And I remember going to a venue and being like, hey, like, can I put up a projector and like do some projections? And they're like, no, it's a fire hazard. And I'm just like, what the hell? Okay. So it was very tough. So I probably spent like a year and a half, like trying to figure out how the hell to make money, what I'm going to do in New York. Everyone's an artist in New York, and no one cares who you are unless they know who you are. And so it was very tough. And I think after struggling for about a year and a half, I decided to leave. And then when I decided to leave, I also remembered why I came. And, all those cliche things. I came for the energy, the people, the lifestyle, the sushi, maybe not the sushi, but all the other things. And I also realized that I was waiting for someone to give me an opportunity. I was waiting for someone to give me the life that I created for myself in Japan. And once I realized that I was waiting, I also realized that I had to go out and create my own opportunities. And how was I going to do that? How could I do that? I was going to use what I had access to. And we all have access to these things. They look a little bit like this. Can you guess what that is? Oh, my drawing must be really bad. I'm going to help you. There's a P. Yeah, one more time. Yes. Okay, pens. I was going to use what I had access to, and those were pens. And what else did I put on there? Do I have any examples? So basically, I was going to pick up pens. I was going to de-evolve. I was going to forget this kind of like high-tech, low-tech thing that I created in Japan, and I was going to pick up pens and start drawing. And that's exactly what I did. I picked up pens and I started to draw, and I realized that, like, wow, like, I've spent all these hours in Japan just drawing and drawing to music and not having a chance to think about what I'm drawing and just kind of drawing in freestyle. And I can do that with a pen. I can pick up a pen and draw on like a 200-foot wall and kind of talk to someone and not look at and draw at the same time and like what I've done. So I realized that I had this kind of skill of drawing very spontaneously, drawing very intuitively, and enjoying the results. So that's what I started to do. And I started to do, so a couple of these are more recent, but I started to do these kind of live drawing performances where I would pick up pens and draw on these larger walls. And there's me at the office again. And it was like super, super fun. And you have this kind of captivated audience that get to kind of look at you create this work in real time. And going back to, in Japan and working in the clubs or working in these kind of avant-garde venues, what I really liked is that, I felt that my visuals were in the foreground. Sometimes I felt that when these VJ guys came in, they have all these computers and mixers, and they're mixing like clips, and someone, like, there's a woman running, and then there's a tunnel, and it just felt like background. But when you are writing like, hey, Sam again, there's Sam again, and it just makes it seem real. It makes it seem like it's happening now, and that brings the visuals and kind of this creativity into the foreground. And that's something that I really enjoy doing with pens, is that it's not precious. It's happening now. It's happening in the foreground. I could be drawing, and someone, could tell me their name, and I'll write their name up there, and then suddenly, like, they're a part of the work. And I feel like with art sometimes there's a huge detachment. So I'm all about kind of bringing it into a way that it's more accessible. A quick question here. I asked these guys the same question. Who in here can draw? Put your hand up. All right, so that's not bad for your creative crowd. So I'll give you, but still that was only like half. So there's probably like 50% of you in here that didn't put your hands up. So ask yourself, how can you not do something as an adult that you did as a 3-year-old? Okay, think about that tonight. So I love working with kids, and I've done a lot of kids workshops, and I do adult workshops, and I think children are at that age when creativity is starting to be taught out of them. If they can't draw that dog like someone next to them, and that dog looks more realistic, then they feel like their dog isn't really a dog, and that they don't have those skills, so that they give up, and they feel like they're not creative, and that they can't draw, and that's slowly a little bit of their individuality being chipped away at them, chip away, and then they usually end up with 9-to-5s and don't like their jobs, and happily ever after or not. But anyway, I'm going to fast forward. Where am I going? Let's skip to my grandma. This is my grandmother. Her name is, can you guess her name? Yeah. Her name is Dot Martin, which is a pretty cool name for your granny. And Dot Martin has been my employee/collaborator for about 10 years. And I send her instructions, like I'll write her a letter, and I'll be like, dear grandmother, please sew me, go home, any color, any size. So she sews it and then sends it back to me wherever I am in the world. And here she also did come home. And I'm like, I didn't ask for come home, but okay. She's like such a bad employee, but all right. And over the years, we built up this whole collection, and we showed some of them at the Brooklyn Museum. And it was super fun. And I told my grandmother, I'm like, they're in a museum. And she was like, why are they in the museum? I said, because people want to see them. She's like, oh, I feel bad. Like, people are going to go out of their way to see our stuff. So I just don't think she gets it, really. So what's been going on recently? I've been drawing, and people take pictures of me draw. So, you noticed before where I used to like it when people just watched, but now people watch me and their phones watch me. So I've been watched doubly time. And I've created this kind of this slogan or this hashtag, drawing on everything. Can I spell EV, everything? I moved to New York, and like I said, I struggled. And in that struggling time, one of the first things I did is I went to galleries. And I'm like, I'm an artist. Like, here's my drawing. Can you give me a show? And they'll say, where have you shown before? And I say, I haven't. And they'll be like, okay, no, thank you. And I realized, like, quite early on that there's this catch-22 within galleries. And most of these artists in these big galleries come from these very selected paths. And I came from the club scene of Japan. So they were like, thanks, but no thanks. So I very early on had to take them out of the equation. And to do that, I decided, okay, I'm going to create a new model. I'm not going to stick to one medium. I'm going to draw on everything. I'm going to collaborate. I'm going to make things. I'm going to, just have fun and do whatever I want to get into. So some things I've been getting into. This is, does anyone know Golan Levin? This is his car there. And I met his kid Zen, and Zen said, oh, we have a white car. And Golan was like, oh, no. So I went out and drew on it, and it's still driving around Pittsburgh today. Something else that happened recently is I gave a lab at MIT in a lab called social computing, and I got invited, can't spell social, I got invited to go back there and kind of be a visiting scholar. So some of the projects that I've been working on there have been super fun, and this is a collaboration with a friend at the lab. He's a researcher there called Jonathan Bobrow, and we started to make these different sensors, and circuit boards and sensors, they're all designed within efficiency in mind, but what if you take back efficiency a little bit and replace that with creativity or delicacy? So we've been creating these fun kind of circuit boards. Another thing I really got interested in is I draw a lot. There's a lot of lines, but what if that line actually added up to something? So this is kind of a beta alpha version of something called Street Ink, where, I'm sorry, I've scribbled on this, but under here, you'll see Cambridge, and on the left-hand side, there's every street name in Cambridge, from the longest to the shortest. And here you have a canvas, so you can draw. And, the first street is Memorial Drive, so you can draw, and when you're drawing, it's in the color of Memorial Drive. And then when you run out of street, you move to the next street. And then when you run out of that street, you move to the next street. So you kind of create this drawing. And when you finish that drawing, you know that the equivalent amount of line, the finished line adds up to the amount of street in Cambridge, for example. So this is just kind of an abstract way of showing a map or data, and that can be used for anything. So that's been super fun. What else do I have on here? Oh, MIT also let me draw on their wall, which was quite nice. And going back to that idea, you saw some of the writing that I was doing at the beginning, and it was a little sad, it was a little angry, and this is one of the poems that I got my grandmother to write. So I wrote her a letter, and I was like, please sew me in black and white these words. I wake, make, sometimes I take, give, work, delay, pray, hope, create, for whose sake. So that's something I think about quite often. And let me scroll down here. This talk's called The Way to Yay. So you remember what did I show you at the beginning? This guy. Okay, so who are you? The first three letters are W-A-Y. You're trying to find your way in life. I'm trying to find my way through this language of words and lines. But where am I trying to find my way to? And here's the journey. I'm trying to find my way here to yay. Wait for it. Going to change color. Make that a little bigger. Trying to find my way to yay. But when you get to yay, that's not the end. You don't want to stop there. You want to keep growing. So you ask that question in a different way. And that's where you see these other kind of iterations come in. And there's are you, and you are who. So you find your way to yay, and then you keep growing. You keep that kind of path going round and round. And that's been super fun. Some of you might have seen this slide up here before, but it's kind of, I like this. No matter how hard you try, you can't please everyone. But 2 out of 3 is not bad, right? So who wants to see a little drawing demo? Woo! All right, let's do this. So I'm just going to switch over. We're going to replace my chair with a little canvas thingy. With an easel, and then I'm going to do some drawing. All right, let me get off this thing. Going to warm up. Okay, I have my GoPro on the back of this pen, so you can smile. Wait, I've got to get in the right mode. Beep, 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 beep. All right, get the pen going. I think I might fall off the edge of the stage there. I'm going to move it over a little bit. Okay, so here... Wait, let me just make sure I'm not going to fall off. So here we have a blank canvas, and for me, this was a thing that was like really scary. What happens if you make a mistake? What happens if you fall off the stage? What happens if something goes wrong? And then I realized that everything's a mistake. So let's just enjoy the process. So now this isn't scary anymore. Now this is a space for freedom and possibilities and discovery. And I start all my drawings in the same way. It doesn't matter if it's a 200-foot wall, or if it's a car, or if it's a shirt, or if it's shoes, or a bedroom wall, or whatever. All the drawings start in the same way. And they start with this line. And for me, this line is the DNA of the work. It's the foundation. It's the skeleton of the work. It's what makes each drawing unique and different in its own way. And what I also like about the DNA is that I can do that, and then I say, look, I finished. I filled the page. I can go home now. But what you have now, it's like a crossword puzzle. And with a crossword puzzle, one thing leads to another. So there's clues. So let's see what clues we have. All right. So we have like this weird shape there, which is kind of like a triangle. So if it's a triangle for me, I do a beak. There's my beak. It's a very long beak, this beak. So if you have a beak, you need an eye. So here's my bird's eye. Oh, you can hear that. Here's a wing. There's a wing. All right, what else do we have in here? We have some land up here. So let's do some trees. I have very simple trees. My trees are like one line, and then maybe 3 other lines. If we have some trees, let's have the sun. I think sun needs some birds, so let's do some birds. My birds are very simple. They're like those M-shaped birds. And my birds are always in threes. I'm from London, where my TH is an F sound, so the word free sounds like the number 3. So this is a joke for myself. There's 3 free birds. And, you know, for example, if there's a line that's kind of smooth and round like a side of a face, then I'm going to do a nose. And if you have a nose, you need a mouth. And if you have a mouth, you need some... You guys are awake. We'll try that again. And we've got some eyes there. And I'm a huge fan of stick men. I love stick men. Some people say, Shantell, I can't draw. I can only draw stick men. And I say, great, me too. Let's collaborate. And I have 2 types of stick men. There's these kind of stick men which push and pull and hold a drawing together. And then if you work in an office, you can probably relate to it. But then there's the other type of stick man that just hang out and have fun. And for me, you know, like I said, words and lines are the same thing. So there's always some words in there. Let's do some dashes, because I have no idea what I'm doing now, and it makes me look busy. And what else can we have there? Some more dashes. Makes me look busy. And there's this space here. I'm not quite sure. Well, I feel like there could be a line there, almost like a little tightrope. And then another face, so we can practice. So you have a nose, you have a mouth, and you have some eyes. One more time. You have some eyes. Woo, we got some eyes. And sometimes people ask me, Shantell, how do you know when you're finished? And I say, so for me, when I start drawing, there's this feeling called stop. There's this feeling called done. And it starts at my toes. And then when I'm drawing, that feeling moves up, and it moves up. And when I kind of do more drawing, it moves up. And then it gets to about here. And then I think, okay, I'm nearly done. I'm going to keep drawing until it gets here. And then I stop. And it's nearly there. Okay, I can feel it. It's almost there. And then the stop feeling is there, and I stop, and you clap. And I look at it for the first time, and I say, yeah, it's pretty good. Cool. So I'm done, and you can find me. I usually have stickers in my pocket that say, are you you, or you are you, or who are you? So feel free to find me, and I'll give you a sticker. But otherwise, yeah, thanks very much. We'll put this out so you can see it later if you couldn't see it so clearly today. So maybe clap again, and then I'll run away. Thank you.